Okay, well, basically, let's kind of turn this thing around.
Okay.
I more or less want to interview you because my
Okay.
thoughts have been yesterday on a video with Herbert that anyone can go ahead and see. But I think what I'm interested in, and probably everyone else, is what your particular thoughts are, and what are some
Okay.
of the things I missed. So what I'm gonna do is break it down into two parts.
Okay.
First, I think it was late Saturday night when it was kind of teased that Brett Adcock
Yes.
said,
Yes.
"Wow, something amazing kind of happened in the lab." And tomorrow it kind of expects something. So when you first heard that, what did you think? What did you expect the reveal to be the next day, or did you expect there's going to be something the next day? And did
Right.
it sort of meet expectations?
It That's a really good question. I think it did in the sense that I was expecting it to be something where they were doing end-to-end neural network training, and as it turned out, that was
Mhm.
it. The robot itself is, I think, more sophisticated, although I actually have paid less
Mhm.
attention to that than to what it was doing, and I'm sure you paid more attention to the robot itself. So, yeah, do you want to take a look at that quick?
Yeah,
Let's
let's
go
go
ahead.
ahead so
Yeah.
everyone sort of knows what we're talking about.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Just in case people have been hiding under a rock. So our AI learned this after watching humans make coffee. So watching humans make coffee is a really, I wish that we had more insight into what that means. That's the first thing that I wish is, does that
mhm.
mean watching videos? Does that mean watching people? Does that mean them wearing like VR and haptic gloves? And like what does it mean by watching? So anyway, but end-to-end neural networks taking video in. So I guess, I mean, and trajectories out. Um, Interestingly enough, here training time was 10 hours, and that is very impressive. And end-to-end neural networks, as he said. So, I mean, I guess what they're saying, and maybe that is enough insight, and maybe I'm just being a little bit pedantic about it, but maybe they literally mean like shoot a video, maybe from the point of view of the person, and then show it to the robot, and it figures it out. So I'm going to turn off
That,
the
that
sound.
yeah, that I don't know.
Right.
And that's probably what it's going to bring. The impression I had is that they may have set something up that it was literally observing them in the office making coffee,
Yeah, I just
and
don't
after
know.
that, went ahead and did it.
Right.
And if
Well,
that's the case, it is a bit of a breakthrough because now you're
yeah.
changing the point of view of being the perspective of the
Right.
robot from that point of
Right.
view to the robot is observing the world and seeing everything. And I'm not sure what the proper term is. It's almost like a form of empathy that
Right.
the robot is now suddenly able to empathize with the person is making
Right.
the coffee and is then able to say, "Oh, look, he's using his left hand. I've got a left hand too. This is
Right.
the motion. I think I can know how to do it." And whether it's studying it, because if that's the case, that is really big. So it may
Yeah.
seem like a really simple demo, and people might be disappointed. Oh, I was expecting a lot more, but
Right.
Brett was sort of intimating over the past couple of weeks that they have been seeing a lot of interesting developments. The other
Right.
thing he said on the Saturday post that someone had asked some questions. I'm not sure if it was you or someone else, but it was somewhere in the thread in which he said that it turned out to be something really easy that no one expected
Hmm.
would work. When I heard
Right.
that, it was like, oh, deja vu all over again, because
Right.
Elon said the same thing in
Yep.
2012,
Yeah.
that it turned
Yeah.
out to be a lot easier than we thought. Again, end to end. And again, about hiding under a rock. Yesterday, I was hiding on top of a rock.
Right.
So of course, when I get up, I learned about it. That the
Yeah.
so what sort of happened is that the that I was kind of wondering. It's like, what's the point of posting this? Everyone's probably already seen this already,
Right.
and
Right.
it is a rather big thing. It's worth studying. It's worth having some discussions about
Right.
what this means, because to me it does feel like a seminal moment. That if you are
Yes.
able to have the bot itself observe what someone else is doing, not from the bot's point of view, but from someone else's, and it's
Right.
able to transfer that and the understanding of that. And then
Right.
is that 10 hours of training of 10 hours of observation, or is that 10 hours of compute? What do you think?
Uh, I think it's compute because it says training time, but
Okay.
so specifically and I'm totally in
Mm-hmm.
agreement with you, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to I think it's like it's a projected theory of mind. It's basically like if what you're saying is if I could
Mm-hmm.
take instead of a point of view, if I take a pair of glasses with stereo cameras and I make coffee, that's one thing because effectively you are the robot then. But if it's
Yes,
like
exactly.
if it's like a video or multiple, even if it's multiple angles of a video of a human making coffee or multiple times, then what you have to do is like a person, right? If I was going to teach you how to make a new dish or something that you'd never made before and we were standing together, I would say, oh, do this like I'm doing it, stir it now like this, and you would be able to project yourself into my body and be able to more or less effectively do that.
Yes,
And
yes,
and
yes,
that
yes.
is the giant leap. If it's able to
Hmm.
do that thing
Hmm.
where it can like project itself into a third party, that's really big. And it's unclear whether that's the case or not, or whether they're using some sort of VR type glasses type thing, or not VR, but you know, glasses with cameras on them, which was clearly what Tesla was doing a year ago when we saw AI Day 2, and they had the person with the big, you know, helmet on and
Exactly.
essentially
And,
demoing it.
and this is what Aloha and a lot of others are doing the same thing.
Right,
They're
right,
trying to do
right.
it from the robot's perspective.
Hmm, hmm.
And now think about this: if you were anyone working at one of these companies,
Right,
and everyone was sort of talking about, well, we think we might have this other method, and everyone says, well, this is kind of crazy; it's not going to work. And you say, okay, we're just going to take our bot, and it's just going to kind of be in the room with the rest of us, and we're going to go around, and we're going to be making coffee, and maybe we
right,
address and say, hey, figure one, look at me, I'm making coffee.
right,
I'm making coffee right now. Keeps on saying that because in here he finally says, hey, figure one, make me a cup of coffee, and it
right,
goes ahead and actually does that. So imagine you just kind of do that and run the compute. You're not expecting anything, and suddenly it wakes up and does that.
right,
You
right.
freaked out, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, you would be like, oh my God,
It worked.
it
Yeah,
actually observed what we did and
right,
it actually worked. And then
right,
you have the decision on a Saturday night, do we keep this to ourselves or do we announce
right,
this?
right,
It
right,
may seem really simple, it may seem really trivial, but it's almost like the robot woke up. It literally just
right.
woke up right there and started doing things which are remarkable. Now,
Yeah,
this is not just big for Figure. I think it's big for everyone else because I have a feeling everyone else is on the cusp of doing this, or maybe has already done
right.
it and just hasn't announced it.
Okay,
They're doing a lot of things like
that's actually where I want to end up, but let's table that for just a second
that.
and watch the video here, because I think any
Yes.
observations. So you can see he's placing the cup. So essentially,
Mhm.
the making coffee here is relatively
Mhm.
simple. It's take the
Yes.
Keurig
Now,
cup.
speaking of making coffee,
Open.
I'm in our
Yeah,
breakfast nook here.
there we go.
We're coming in, everyone's having breakfast. So if you're seeing a little bit, hearing a little bit of noise, we're just kind of adding to the ambiance of what's going
There
on
we
in here,
go.
just setting the mood.
And
So, okay.
in case anybody missed it, first of all, hey y'all, it's Dr. Know It All. Second of all, I am in Las Vegas right now, so it is
Mhm.
11:10 in the evening and 8 o'clock in the morning for you. So we're
And
kind of on
we have like
opposite
10
ends.
minutes before the Vulcan launch, before the Vulcan launch.
Oh
So we may
yes,
have
we
to cut
do.
out if we want to see it.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. So we need to get through this efficiently. Gosh,
I
there's a
had a
lot of stuff
weird
going on.
dream about that launch last night that was just kind of like really off the rails. So,
So yeah, well, let's good luck to Falcon. I guess we'll know by the time this goes live, certainly. But
yeah.
anyway, so you think about this demo. Essentially, it's opening up the top of the Keurig, getting the little cup, putting it in, closing the top, and then pushing the button. So I mean, you know, in terms of realistic stuff, that's not that much to do. And certainly, if you had an expert programmer, heuristically, you could program the robot to do that without too much trouble. But the point of this is how it learned. It's not what it's doing, but it's
Mhm.
how it did it. The robot
Yes.
itself actually is very cool. Also, you noticed before, I noticed that you said that it has three finger joints instead of
Three
two as
knuckles. It's got
Optimus.
three
Three knuckles,
knuckles.
yeah,
So
yeah,
probably tendon driven.
right.
And the
And
thing I mentioned to Herbert is that, so, the fingers seem to be maybe
oops,
a bit more compliant, a bit more human like. I don't
right,
like the design of the wrist and the whole forearm.
yeah,
I think there's
yeah,
a lot of cleanup that has to be done there. But
right,
I mean, that's a moot point compared to everything else that's going on. That's something that
exactly,
can be fixed.
exactly.
They
Yeah, I
already
mean,
have such a nice design for the hip. I'm like, well,
right.
wait a minute. If you come up with that, you can also design a nice wrist. I'm sure they
Right.
will.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, I mean, I'm assuming they're aiming for figure eight because that's what so figure one is 7 away
Yeah.
from figure eight. So
Yes. Exactly. Exactly.
so anyway, so but you can see, you know, it puts the cup in. The impressive part to me is honestly not even this demo, but the part where it shows it correcting itself, the close up in just a minute. But anyway, so you know, really nice, and it makes the coffee, and then the person comes and picks it up and everything. So very cool. But then where? Oh yeah, so here we go. So we get to the error correction that it does, and
Yes.
coming up
And the error
here.
correction, you get close-ups of the hands as well.
Yeah, here.
And if you want to
Yes.
be thinking, the bot didn't put the coffee cup underneath the maker. It just went ahead and put the
Right.
pot in there.
Right.
Again, for
Right.
me, that's just like that's nitpicking on what's going
Yeah.
on. The main thing is
Right.
if it learned to do it just by observing humans,
Right.
that
And
is
and
big.
and this behavior, if this is full end-to-end neural network without somebody giving heuristic code, which they indicate, the fact that it self-corrects here as it puts the cup in indicates a level of reasoning because it then understands the objective of the action. And that means
Yes.
it's able to think about multiple steps here. It's not just like move your hand around here, because I can move my hand here, but that doesn't do anything. It's like, no, the objective is to pick up the cup and place the cup in there. And so it understands when it doesn't land right, it has to fix that problem. And that is very
And I
impressive.
wonder if it saw examples of it not landing right and it being
Yeah,
corrected.
yeah, yeah, more than
In which
likely.
case, you almost wonder if it intentionally puts it in incorrectly, if it saw a lot of
Right.
examples of it first going incorrectly, or if it just kind of learned from that, that this is the way you want to do it, this is how you correct it.
Right. I think this first time that they show the demo, it actually goes in properly. Let's watch that again just to make
Yes,
sure.
yes, yes.
Yeah. So, yep.
And the
Yeah,
other
so it
thing
does.
to
Yeah,
remember
so
is that at the very beginning, there's a voice command to go ahead and make the coffee.
right,
So that
right.
means they probably have some sort of LLM in there to be able to understand the commands on what you
Correct.
want it to do. It wasn't
Correct.
just that the coffee maker was put in front of it and it looks at it and says, "Oh, I'm going to go ahead and do this now." It seemed
Right.
like it was really waiting for the prompt. It's just because you're standing in front of a coffee maker, you don't start making coffee. You
Right.
make it
Right.
because someone is
Yeah.
giving you the command, or there's a reason, or if you're the bot and you just like the aroma of coffee and you just decide, right now I want to do it, and that means agency, and that starts getting a bit freaky.
Yeah, I think it's scary. So I want to look at Brett. He did a post right after this. Yeah. So this is actually, I think, really important to read too. So I think, getting into their headspace. Why is this so important? The reason why this is so groundbreaking is if you can get human data for an application, making coffee, folding laundry, I'm telling you, man, that's the thing. I don't know. Am I frozen there? I look like I'm frozen. Anyway, folding laundry, warehouse work, etc. You can then train an AI system end to end on figure one. There is a path to scale to every use case. And when the fleet expands, further data is collected from the robot fleet, then retrained, and the robot achieves even better performance. So anyway, so there's a lot of this stuff to break down here. Number one, folding laundry. That if we if we get a robot that folds laundry, I will pay lots of money for that. But essentially what he's saying is this simple demo is very easy to replicate. I think that's the TLDR here.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you have to, and
Yes.
again, if we sort of correlate or not correlate, compare this or contrast this with Boston Dynamics, where in the past, at least, I don't know what they're doing now, but they've had to hard code everything. So it can do a backflip or something, but most of that is actually hard coded, which means it's a very tedious product process and not easy to scale. If you want to teach it a new trick, you have to teach it the new trick. Here, it's just sort of like, oh, here's something else. Here's making coffee. Here's filling up a glass of water. Here's folding laundry. Here's moving some object from one place to another in a factory. It's very easy to scale that because it's just some video or a human demonstrating or something. Anyway, it looks like it's video because it's probably taking it in terms of just like a standard neural network
Yes.
and figuring it out. But again, that's very, very cool. So that's what he's saying. There's a path to scaling this. So it means that you're no longer stuck having to say, like, I wanted to do this task. I'm now going to spend 6 months writing the code, testing the code, making sure it works, all of that kind of stuff. And then the interesting part, of course, is that because it's a neural network, that if it gets like most of the way there, it can then train itself. Like it can continue to get more feedback and
Mm-hmm.
get better. So it does not require more
Yes.
coding after that. So
Yeah,
really impressive.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree that the path to scaling here is amazing because we already have the training sets.
Yes.
They've been in
Yes.
existence for almost decades now
Right.
of technical manuals and everything else showing how to do different things. Any
Right.
set of videos people put together. So that means you'd be able to train these extremely quickly if this really does seem to be a way of being able to train the bot. No doubt about it. The
Right.
other is that, when it comes to folding laundry, we already saw just a few days ago that the Stanford Aloha robot,
Right.
despite the fact that it's not, let's say I think someone called it like lobster claw kind of hands or basically two
Yeah.
thumbs,
Yeah.
is able to do things like fold the laundry and even, change the bed sheets as well as putting a pillowcase on. And I
Right.
found that rather amazing that, they have that kind of a dexterity. That was done teleoperation, which meant you put a very smart brain in the loop, which was a
Right.
human. But if that
Right.
smart brain is an AI, that means you can do just about anything. And now we're talking about
Right.
robots that are more capable, that are learning very quickly. So the laundry folding robot is probably coming a lot faster than I had predicted before.
Oh
I was
yeah.
just always like, it could throw everything into the washing machine and take it
Right.
out, put it in the dryer, and maybe sort it. But I was like, oh, it's going to be really hard to do the folding because
Right.
fabric and stuff is really tough. But that's really just a brain problem. It's not clearly
Yes.
it's not really a mechanical problem at this point.
Right.
You could have something pretty simple. It may be you could have something that has like no hands at all, but just has almost like balls on the end that's able to
Right.
grab these things up and potentially go ahead and do that. It'd be a bit tedious and a bit hard, but it seems that all you need now is a form factor that comfortably fits into the human space or your home environment, which is not going to be some big clunky thing, but
Right.
the form factor we're used to. And you get the brain in there, and yeah, you're talking about just about any task can be done, and it
Right.
can be done probably much sooner than people think.
Yeah.
The capability will be there. Whether it's really going to be something that you can order for this Christmas, I don't think so.
Yeah.
But Christmas 2024, but it's something that, clearly by the end of the decade, we're going to start seeing this showing up in people's homes.
Right. And I'm very firmly convinced after watching this stuff that it's going to be in factories this year. Maybe not at large
Hmm.
scale, but they're going to be
Absolutely.
doing
If
useful
it's,
work.
yeah, from my standpoint, yesterday was the 7th, it's still the 7th for you.
Yep.
So we're
Yep.
not even, more than 7 days into 2024, and we're already seeing these kind of developments.
Crazy.
What are the next couple of weeks going to start bringing us? Because you
Right.
probably have the feeling that everyone's been sitting on some of these things, waiting for the appropriate moment or putting some polish on it or saying that, well, it's not quite the right time to announce this. We want to wait until some other big event.
Right.
CES is kind of an event. Who knows what you're going to start hearing out there?
Yeah.
There may be a surprise announcement tomorrow or the day after out in Las Vegas for one of those companies, or we may hear about some new startups. So, yeah, buckle up. This is going to be quite a ride.
Yeah. It's going to be crazy. So actually, yeah, let me stop sharing here. And I think that actually brings up exactly what I wanted to talk about, which was, I don't want to keep this forever because you got to go skiing and I need to go to bed. But
Mhm.
that I feel like we're at an iPhone moment in the sense of what Tony Seba always talked about with the iPhone was the correct time because all of the technologies were coming together. And here it's not just the mechanical technologies, but more actually the architecture. And one of the things that's making me very excited is we're seeing Tesla and Figure and Agility and several other companies, and also Comma AI. I mean, George Hotz's company, all saying, and George has been saying this for years, but it's like end to end, end to end, end to end, and everyone's suddenly going like, oh, that's the right answer. And it's like
Yes.
somehow we all achieved the compute processing power, the amount of data we needed, the curated data, the correct architectures. All of those things seem to have congealed. And then you have humanoid robots with enough battery power density. You have good actuators that are there. You have lightweight materials. You have people who have been doing this long enough that they know how to build them. So I feel like it's 2007. We're suddenly going
It's
from
being
dumb
taught in
phones.
universities. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
So
going
there are
from dumb phones to
universities
smartphones.
humanoid
Yeah.
robots.
Yeah.
It could
Again.
be a
So
lot of people are like, oh, they're only doing it because they saw Tesla doing it and copying Tesla. It's like, no, 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 no. There were a bunch of other companies in this space before the Teslabot. So
right.
it's not about that we're just copying Elon because we think this is going to be the next kind of hype thing to do.
Right.
Whether it pans out to be something like that. No, everyone else has been observing this, and they realize that like you say, the confluence of technologies are coming together. There's really
Right.
serious thought going on in there, and that's no, this is not some flash in the pan thing. This is going to
Yeah.
be like the iPhone. The iPhone was not just some sort of trend in 2008 that people got it and said, no, I'm going to go back to flip phones. No,
Right.
it dominated industry. It changed industry. It
Right.
put industry titans out of business. It created some new ones. And
Right.
of course, we've got a whole new industry that grew up around the iPhone with as far as
Right.
apps and app developments and how much it's changed our lives, the convenience features that you're able to do.
Right.
There's going to be the same thing. The humanoid bot is going to be transformative in ways that we cannot imagine right now,
Right.
but it's important to start having the discussion now.
I think it's important to make a note. I mean, I'm thinking about it since I'm at CES, but I'm at CES in 2005. I would have had to bring a suitcase full of camera equipment And now what I've got is a tripod and a phone and a microphone, and all of which basically can fit in my pocket. Little, and that is a remarkable change in, say, I mean, 20 years is generous, like 16, 17 years. So what are we going to be looking at 16 or 17 years from now with embodied AI? It's going to be outrageous.
It
It's
is.
just it's hard to even imagine how different it's
There
going to
could
be.
be like, real little bots as well. Doesn't mean they have to
Right,
be the same size as a human. It might be that it
right.
makes sense to have some that are much smaller, different kind of robot pets. I mean, who knows
Yeah,
what's
yeah,
going to be. If you want to have an idea what it's going to look like, maybe you need to revisit iRobot,
yeah. You
because
mean
I
Asimov's
think
book?
even the year that
Yeah,
they
yeah,
were having is pretty close. Not just Asimov's book, but the
right.
movie that came out in
Yeah,
2005.
yeah.
And I think it was somewhere around 2030 or something like that was around the
Right,
time, or the early 2030s that it was placed, at which point you have a lot of them out there. That might be kind of what it starts to look like. I think they
right,
painted a pretty good image in 2005 of what that was going to be, because even the jokes in there get funnier with. It's really rare that a joke can age, but in many cases,
right,
the jokes they made in that movie were not funny at the time because people didn't understand the jokes, and
right,
you get them now because when you look back at it,
right.
it's like they were so predictive. And
Yeah,
and the one
yeah.
scene where Bridget Monahan can't figure out how to turn off the stereo she accidentally turned on because she keeps on giving it voice commands. She doesn't understand you
Right.
have to push a button to turn it
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
Will Smith is collecting antiques, basically antique
Right.
technology. So he's the one that knows how it works. So you look at that and you go, yeah, that was, Siri didn't exist at that time in 2005.
Yeah.
All these other
Yeah.
things, and the closest you had was like a little remote control for your stereo
Right.
equipment. We forget
Right.
about that. That's how much things have changed. So even though that's 2005, it's the 21st century. A lot of the
Yeah.
things we take for granted now in the 21st century didn't exist at the beginning of the 21st century.
Right. Right. Yeah. A lot of the mobile technology. I mean, we kind of had the basis in terms of,
iPhone didn't. iPhone
yeah.
is
Yeah.
2008.
Yeah. 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 No, that's what I'm saying.
Just
But
think
I'm
about it,
saying,
the
like,
first 8 years.
yeah. Yeah. Nada. I had a Palm Pilot and a Palm Trio, which was great, but it's not the same thing. So,
But look at some classic movies from the aughts and stuff like that, where
right.
everyone's getting on their cell phone to talk about this and that. And it's a flip phone they're all doing,
Right.
it's and it was only much later that you actually start seeing the thing of how do we put texting into movies to make that
Right.
part of the scene.
Right.
The script writers had to put that in because that's how people are starting to. So you begin to see that. And that's why it's really interesting. It's almost quaint to look at movies that are 10, 20, 30 years old to see
Right.
how much the technology has progressed. And when
Yeah.
you look at that and realize, wait a minute, that's happening towards our lifetime. I remember
Yeah.
when that movie came out. That seems like
Yeah.
yesterday. Look how
Exactly.
antiquated the technology is. Wow.
Right.
Just imagine what it's going to be in 2030 and 2040.
Right. Right. Oh yeah, it's going to be hard for people to even imagine. It's going to be like going back 40 years now and thinking pre-internet. It's like how did we live when I had to go to the library and read newspapers and stuff? It's like what? It seems crazy. So um but yeah, so
I go back and it was difficult.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it was, I don't know. I guess we grew tougher. But okay, so yeah, so in terms of figure, I mean, obviously this is very impressive stuff. We need more details. So if anybody from Figure wants to come on and talk to us about it, we would love to get more details. But I think from what we can glean, it sounds like the breakthrough is less about the mechanics because they've had the body for a while and more about how they're teaching it and how simple it is and how scalable the teaching is. So instead of all of this hard work to teach it to do one simple thing, it's like, well, here's some video. And what we don't know is how the video is oriented. Did they do like surround 360 videos and some very careful things to show it all these different angles, or did they just somebody had an iPhone and just like stuck it there and watch somebody else make
Hmm,
some coffee? I
sure.
don't know. Those things matter a lot because that matters in terms of scalability and everything. But
Yeah, yeah. If they'd like to invite us out and have you and I try to teach them a task,
that would
that
be
would be cool.
pretty kick-ass. That would
Now,
be
I
cool.
already put it out there on Herbert's channel yesterday.
Right.
I'll do it again, and I'll include you in this. Is that
Yeah.
we'd like to do a George Hotz that either Elon Brett Adcock, please hire us to be an intern for, I don't know, like 6 months in your companies just to play around and figure out what's going on.
Man, that would be
And,
kick-ass. Yeah.
short of that, yes, go ahead, have us go out and then let's come up with a task and let's see how good we are at being able to train the bot so that we
Right.
understand exactly what the steps
Yeah,
are
yeah, yeah.
and kind of everyone.
Right. Yeah. And the really cool part, again, I think people too often people are like, oh, it's Tesla versus Figure versus, all these. It's not that. This is a giant pie. As Stern Basher was very, very excellent at explaining, this is a huge pie. And anybody who's in on the ground floor at this point making progress is going to be very successful. So
Yes,
so
and it's
yeah.
not just and then, again, the pie analogy. It's not like it's a pie of limited size. It's a
Yes.
pie which is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And almost every time you take a slice out of that pie, the pie gets even bigger.
Right.
Because at this point, everyone realizes, wow, this stuff is really working. Now there's suddenly
Right.
a bigger and bigger TAM as everyone begins to realize that the robots are coming.
Yeah. Steal a line from Farzad there. So yes, indeed. So excellent. Okay, there we go. So we got it. We got through the kind of crappy internet between our two different hotels, but I think we did it. So hopefully everyone will be patient with all of that stuff. And thank you. Thank you, Scott. You go ski for the day. Enjoy yourself. All right, and we're back. Addendum, the Vulcan launched. The Centaur is burning right now. Great job, ULA.
Great,
Any thoughts?
great.
Yeah, I know. Very exciting stuff. So that's cool. So we'll add that
It's
in
the
as a
first
little
launch of this vehicle. And
yeah,
that's the thing. It's the maiden launch, and not only just a maiden launch, they put a payload on there.
yeah,
And
yeah.
usually you just do the maiden launch and then hope for the best on that, and then go ahead and put a payload on it.
Right.
So far this seems to be pretty successful. It's like 14 minutes in, and everything seems to be a-okay at this point. And let's just
Yeah.
hope the rest of the mission goes as smoothly as it is so far. And it's great to see that, yeah, you can actually get the first missions to go right.
Right. Awesome. So congratulations, ULA, and that's fantastic. And as with everything else, the more success there is, the better it is. So we can all be happy for that. So cool. All right. Again, we will say goodbye. Everybody have a great one. Ciao.